This pattern is the Black Caddis, which is a really great pattern, especially when those dark caddis flies are coming off the water, or Black Caddis is coming off the water. I've got a size 14 dry fly hook here in my vise, and I'm just using some black GSP gel spun thread. I like to use the GSP here because we're going to be tying in the classic deer hair wing, although it'll be black. And the gel spun just allows me to put a lot more pressure on it when I'm tying that wing in. Our first material is going to be a piece of mirage or pearl tinsel. This is in a very small size. I'm going to secure that on the lens side of the hook here, and I'm just going to take a couple of wraps and then I'll pull it backwards to length. And then I'll just focus on getting that tied in back at the bend of our hook. So we'll just travel on back to located right at the back of the barb here. That's right exactly where I want it. I'm going to go ahead and travel back up forward, securing that in. Next I'm going to secure in a piece of black thread here, and we're going to use that to just make this a little bit stronger and more durable, because that tinsel can be pretty brittle. A fish gets its teeth on it and it'll unravel your fly, and this is going to help strengthen that. So I've tied that in. I'm just going to pull it backwards to length as well. This I'm going to counter wrap, so I'm going to go ahead and just tie it on my side of the hook. You can use a smaller denier. This is a pretty heavy denier thread, and I'm going to have to spin it up a little bit in order to get it to fit between those wraps of the Flashabou. So next I've got a little wisp of hare's ear or hare's black dubbing, which goes perfectly with the Black Caddis fly. And I dub this on my hook. Oh my goodness, must be Monday. On my thread here. I'll probably have to go back for just another little bit of it. I'm just going to tighten that down a little bit. Take a couple of thread wraps back towards the back. When I do my caddises, I like to make the taper kind of a reverse of what we're used to, so it's a little thicker in the back, and then it gets a little bit thinner as we move forward. And that's really how a caddis body is, if you grab one off the water and take a look at it. With those two materials in place, I'm just going to grab our Flashabou here. I'm going to take some open wraps of it right through that black dubbing. Try to make them as even as you possibly can, but even as I say that, I know mine probably won't be nice and even. But I try, and that's what counts. And once I have that up at the front, we'll just go ahead and put a couple of wraps over the top of it, securing it in place. I'll pull it backwards a little bit, take another couple of wraps, come in with my scissors, and I'll cut off the excess. I'm going to take my black thread and I'm going to try to wrap it right in between those wraps of the Flashabou. And again, this is just to help secure that Flashabou so that it doesn't come apart on you after your first or second cast. Assuming they're catching fish with your first or second cast, which I presume you guys are all amazing fishermen, so you are. So I'm going to take that right up to where we tied off our Flashabou. I'm going to take a couple of wraps over the top of it as well, and then tie a couple on the back, on the front side of it. And we'll go ahead and remove that material as well. I'm going to put a CDC underwing on this, and I'm just going to use a couple of feathers of CDC in a light gray down color. I've just stripped those away from the stem. I'm just going to go ahead and tie those into the top of my hook shank here. For right now, my main focus is just going to be to keep these on top. They will be long, but we'll trim them off after we put our wing on. can just kind of hold up those butt ends as best as you can and come in with your scissors and trim them off. Now with those trimmed off, I'm just going to clean up those butt ends with a few thread wraps here. I want to create a pretty consistent base to lay this deer hair wing down on, so I'll take a few extra wraps just to kind of even things out a little bit. So we're just going to turn to some deer hair that's been dyed black. Already cut out a little clump of it. As usual, we'll want to grab our comb and comb out the under fur a little bit. Just run your comb through here a few times on both ends. That'll just help it stack better. You can see, as I always show, how uneven those tips are on the deer hair, and we're going to want to get them straightened up, and that's why we use our hair stacker. We'll just feed them in this nice funneled opening, and then we'll give it some taps on our table just to stack those and line those tips up. So once we've got it stacked, you can see those tips are lined up. Got some fuzz in there, that's why we want to get rid of it, but we'll just stroke it out. I'm just going to pull those out by the tips. I want to get a measure on this. I want these to extend back to about the bend of the hook. So I'm going to take my measurement there. I know my tie-in point is about right here, so I'm going to clamp that down really tight, and we're going to cut off those butt ends. So with those butt ends cut off, you can see I've got them cut off in a nice straight line. I want them to just be short of the hook eye here. Turn your thread counterclockwise so it'll wrap back towards your fingers. Go ahead and capture those hairs. I'm going to take that one loose wrap around. I'm not going to pull tight until I start pulling upwards. And I'm going to, this is where the GSP comes in handy, because I can put a lot of pressure on it without it breaking. I'm just going to take a few wraps here to secure those down. With those secure down, we're just going to take a few wraps underneath those butt ends right around the base of the eye of the hook. Give ourselves a little bit of extra thread so we can do our finishing work on here with our whip finisher. Go ahead and grab that, and we're going to take our whip finishing turns also right around the eye of the hook. We'll release our thread. Make sure that knot is nice and seated and secure, and we'll grab our thread cutter and we'll go ahead and remove our thread. So last, I'm just going to hold everything in place a little bit. I'm just going to come in with my fingers. You can break off that CDC. I want it to be about the same length, if not a little bit shorter than the deer hair there. And that's going to create a nice underwing for us on the pattern. And that's all there is to it. Here's the Black Caddis. Again, a great pattern to tie and have in your box. When you've got the darker caddises coming off the water, black caddises coming off the water, grab yourself a hook, throw it in your vise, and give this one a shot.